Well, first off, everybody, welcome to venue. Really appreciate everybody for coming out tonight, and welcome to A2NewTech. Who are we? Like, why are we here? You guys ever really asked that question? We're not just here to hear some amazing presentations and hear some visions for the future and how we can all make it happen, but we're here to create some energy, some positive energy, and try to support each other as much as we possibly can. My name is Chris Ading. I'm the experience manager here at Venue. My job is to fill in for Hein tonight. He can't be here, he's traveling, doing some fun things as well on his end. So we'll do our best to bring this place to life tonight and have a lot of fun. So we're here to connect. We're here to support each other. We're here to get some inspiration from some great presenters and learn a little bit more about their brands. And like I said, we're here to support each other. But before we get started, I'd like to learn a little bit about who's in attendance. So as we start to really think about how we can support each other, really get a sense of the different types of people and different backgrounds and experiences and perspectives that are a part of this amazing group. So first off, let's do a little bit of a poll. How many entrepreneurs do we have in the audience? Awesome. How many people are wanting to start something big, have a goal or a dream or looking to get started? All right, awesome, that's great. How many investors? People that are looking to support in some way, shape, or form. How many marketers? How many creatives? Okay, great. Designers, I guess that's kind of in the same ballpark, but how many software developers, IT, technical people do we have? Amazing. How many people fall into the other category that I didn't just mention? Are there? What do you do?
Construction manager.
Awesome. Who else do we have here tonight? What do you do?
I help out over at MakerWorks. When people need to make physical things, that's what our shop does to support.
All right, and why are we here tonight?
Last month there was a gentleman named Brandon who had done some work at our shop, and I happened to catch the tail end of his presentation. I was like,
yeah,
that's awesome. So I figured I'd check out some more.
So you were inspired by that?
I was inspired by it. I was
awesome.
At one about 10 years ago, so it's been a minute.
Awesome, I love it. Why are you here tonight?
I'm a supporter.
You're a supporter? I love it. And why do you enjoy supporting people like this?
My taxes presenting.
Oh, that's we all go first. Oh, that's amazing. Awesome, I love it. That's okay, that's awesome. It's great to support. Well, we're glad you're all here tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. Like I said, the real power of why we are here is when there is a goal, when there is a dream, when there is a brand that's coming into this world, one of the very first things you need to realize is you can't do it alone. You need a team of people around you to support you, to make you better, to give you information, support, resources. Whatever that looks like for you, it's kind of your mindset to figure out what that team needs to look like, and then find amazing groups of people like this to come together to really kind of leverage that. So that is really why we're here. So after our presentations tonight, kind of get into that spirit of things, tap into that energy. We're going to be doing a lot of networking, a lot of connecting, a lot of listening today during the presentations to really identify, like, how can I help this person? Like, everybody in this room has needs. Like, so it's getting really clear on what those needs are and not being afraid to ask for a little bit of help. So the presenters tonight, get really clear on what your needs are and don't be afraid to get up here in front of everybody and just say, hey, I need some help with X, Y, or Z. Okay, because that can make a lot of difference for you and what you're trying to achieve. Another way that this community can continue collaborating and communicating and supporting each other is through the A2NewTech Slack channel. Are you all members of that or signed into that? So if you're not, really do encourage that type of online community. You can join the Slack by going to madeina2.com/Slack. That's madeina2.com/Slack. All right, and that's your opportunity and our opportunity to come together after this meeting and continue a lot of these conversations. Continue asking questions. Continue supporting each other. All these really important things. All right, before we introduce our presenters tonight, I want to give you a quick overview of how this format works. Who's been here before, by the way? Okay, so most of you know how this works. Who's brand new? First time here tonight? Pretty good number, all right? So here's how it's going to work. each presenter tonight will have 5 minutes to share their business with us. After that presentation, there's a 5-minute Q&A. All right, so during the presentations, you're going to be listening, learning, curious, open-minded, and then during the Q&A, that's our opportunity to kind of have a more in-depth conversation to identify how we can help and support and kind of leverage each other as much as possible. We're also going to monitor the Zoom session. Do we have anybody logged into Zoom yet? All right, so we're getting some questions and comments and feedback from the people logged in via Zoom, so we'll try to make this as immersive an experience as possible. For in-person questions, which we highly encourage, presenters will repeat the questions so those on the Zoom can hear them. After all the presentations, we'll open things up for a community announcement. So if any of you have anything that you want to announce or share or give updates on, whatever it might be, maybe you're planning your own meetup, your own group, your own networking, you need services, you're hiring, whatever it may be, feel free to use that particular part of tonight as your opportunity to get up and say a few words. One last thing before we start our presentations, we want to thank our sponsors. A2 Geeks, thank you very much for sponsoring us. Roger Rayle, thank you so much. And Arbor Spark, a big thank you. Entrepreneurship Clinic at U of M Law School, thank you very much. And of course, 4M, venue here tonight for providing this amazing space for our meetup. We'll get into it a little bit later, but there is an amazing restaurant and bar right outside these doors. So after you're done tonight, feel free to go out there and explore the space and have some fun. You guys ready for some presentations?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this, everybody. So our first pitch of the evening is for DEO. Ayisha's going to get up. DEO developed an innovative OR efficiency platform that enables the healthcare community to do more with less. Come on up. Big round of applause, everybody.
Hi everyone, I'm Ayishwariya Menon, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about DEO.care. It's a business that we started to solve some of the efficiency challenges facing the healthcare system today. So what exactly is driving some of these challenges? So surgical demand is increasing and it's projected to continue to do so. Unfortunately, budgets are not, and this situation is only made worse by the pandemic. And we can't expect our already stretched healthcare workforce to do more. As we can see from the numbers, we will just hit a point where there are just more patients than the workforce and the budget can support. So we have chosen to focus on the operating room because the OR is the largest cost driver in the hospital. However, this is a very challenging ecosystem because there are so many different stakeholders that need to be aligned to make the right decisions. So we believe that this alignment can be made possible with access to better data that can deliver quick and actionable insights. And that's essentially what DEO does. We generate data, deliver insights with the aim to improve operational excellence in the operating room. And what we found is that when we focus on making the OR process simpler, more standardized, and consistent, it reduces the fatigue within the surgical team. And when we start with that, it also we tend to see an increase in the surgery volume, and eventually this produces a better performing OR financially. Our goal is to create an environment that makes it easier to perform the OR processes. Next slide, please. Oh, could you go back, please? So how do we do that? We generate our own data. We have an iPhone app. This is our remote measurement kit that's sent to the operating room. It's set up in the OR, and it generates an anonymized video stream that's encrypted on site before it's uploaded to us. And on the back end, we use a combination of artificial and human intelligence to remotely measure what's happening in the OR. What this allows us to do is it allows us to create our own comprehensive and situation-specific data set instead of data mining from existing systems. And this gives us a very full picture of the entire OR process, looking at everything that's going on. Essentially, we are building a One slide back, please. Back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So essentially, we're building a digital twin of the OR process. And all these digital twins essentially build our data model. As of last week, this is what our data model looked like with all the customers that we've worked with. And as this data model grows, we're able to simulate different scenarios, understand the impact of specific changes on the specific OR setup as well. Our go-to-market strategy is to leverage existing sales channels from established healthcare vendors. We have these channel partners who sell our solution along with their product portfolio. We build on that customer base to go with direct sales as well. Our revenue model is data as a service, insight as a service, and we also have the opportunity for SaaS and change management services as well. In terms of competition, our competition is actually sliced in two ways. We have very health tech driven, very services driven, and we start with intelligent information all the way to procedure specific actionable insights. And our analysis shows that we are pretty unique in that combination of being very health tech driven, but also very specific and deep in our insights. In terms of market traction, we've generated about $500,000 in income. So far, we have a 3-year commercial agreement with Johnson & Johnson. We're executing a paid pilot with a large medical device company right now, and we have 9 pilot agreements in negotiation as well. A little bit about the company. We started in 2018 with Belgian headquarters. We've raised about $4.5 million in funding, with the last round closing at the end of last year, which has kind of driven our expansion into the US. Our plans for the US are really to look at getting product market fit for this market. We want to grow our data platform with more local data, build partnerships with partners here, and of course, build a team to support that growth that we're planning to see. Which leads me to our ask. We are hiring. We are looking to have a medical engineer join our team to support our US projects and customers. We're looking for an early career professional with at least 2 years of experience. So if you know someone who's interested in working in a dynamic, purpose-driven environment, we'd love to have them. We have a lot of international support as well for our team. So thank you for having me. That's my talk for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm going to sneak in 2 questions.
Sure.
First of all, it's all I understand you're collecting some really interesting data there. Can you give us an example or 2 of the kind of recommendations that would come out of that for improvement?
Yeah.
And along with that, to what extent is there kind of a human consulting component to produce those recommendations?
Sure. So I guess I have to repeat the questions for the Zoom. So the first question was what sort of recommendations could come out of one of our operational excellence projects. So I'll answer that first. Oh, I don't have any. So for example, I can give you a very specific example, I guess. So with ORs, one of the key drivers is to increase your OR throughput, right? So if you're doing 4 surgeries in a day, how can you get to 5? So we would then go in, we'd look at the data, we'd conduct an assessment, and look at where there might be efficiencies to be gained to get to those 5 cases a day additionally. Quite often, it's very simple things like doing more processes in parallel. It could be reallocation of tasks within the surgical team. It could also mean, some surgeons want to double their caseload per day, when we look at how can we add a second OR and what are the steps that we need to do to do that. So those are some examples of recommendations. And then the second question was how much of a human consultant role is there? I'd say at this stage there's a pretty big part of that we play there, and that's why we specifically say it's a combination of AI and human intelligence, because at this point the AI alone just gives you data. It's still the human part that gives you the insights that you then use to create that change and drive that change as well. Yes?
So are you more, I don't know if this is a relevant question, but are you more focused on outpatient or inpatient surgeries?
So essentially, it's as long as it's surgical procedure or a procedure, we're also doing cath labs, for example, can be fairly customized, then we can work with that essentially. But I would say in the US, our focus has been more with ambulatory surgery centers, which are outpatient. Partly, there's more from a business perspective that it has a slightly shorter sales cycle. You don't really have to go through large health systems and all the bureaucracy. It's a quicker discussion with the stakeholders that make the decisions. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what kind of challenges do you face with sort of security and kind of maybe surgeons not wanting cameras in the room while they're doing operations? Yeah, I don't know kind of how it is now, but how does that affect what you're doing?
Oh, is that the same question? Okay. Yeah, I think it's been interesting because there's a big variation in what kind of appetite people have for that. I mean, we're very careful about only using anonymized data, and the fact is we actually never get any data that's not anonymized. Everything's done on the iPhone, actually, before it's uploaded to us. So we don't have anything that can identify the patient that comes to us, and even the blurring of faces, we typically, don't identify the staff either. It's really about roles and what they're doing when, rather than who and how they're performing. So it's very little to do with personal performance and much more to do with how can the team work better together.
So with the human component of labeling, do you have a plan to move that to more of an automated direction?
To a more
More of an automated data labeling direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I would say we do a lot more manual work than we want to be doing. So definitely the plan is to invest in that part of our business, to grow our R&D, to work on the AI portion of things. I think the human component has been really important for us to understand what makes sense to automate and what doesn't. So already with our before we did the remote measurement app, and we still offer this, we actually had an engineer go into the OR with an iPad app and take notes and kind of use that and we use that information to develop the remote app. That's already halved our time, and so now we're trying to just work to a point where, as much as possible, we'd like to use the AI to get us the data, or even pre-label everything, right? And then an engineer sort of checks rather than has to do the labeling themselves. So sort of moving in that direction for sure.
So let's take one more question, and then we can take additional questions after the presenters tonight. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
For the customers that you already have, you mentioned I think once, what's the business model and what's the pricing looking like?
Yeah, so right now we work on, our goal is to really have long-term collaborations with these strategic partners, which are usually like medical device companies. At the moment, we do a lot of paid pilot projects to kind of build the concept for them, understand what we're doing. I'd say the long-term business model we're looking at is licensing to create a more recurring business with each of our collaborations as well.
And do you know the value of individual operation?
Do you mean a surgery?
Yes.
Yeah, so actually one of the things I didn't talk about was we have an activity-based cost model. So part of our value proposition is we're able to tell you what it costs to do your surgery today per case that you're doing right now. And then if they have a goal they want to meet, or if they improve it with these efficiencies, what can you get to essentially? And that's actually very interesting for the outpatient centers because bottom line is a very big part of their business as well.
All right, thank you, Aish. Great job. Up next, presenting is Mark Kenny. Mark is with Clink. Clink is a mobile app for P2P construction equipment rental. Please welcome Mark.
There you go.
Hi everyone, it's my first time ever coming to one of these events, so thank you for letting me present on my very first trip. As I mentioned earlier, I rose my hand and said I'm a construction manager. I am not a developer. I had no background in tech. What happened was my co-founder and I, who was also a general contractor who's down in Florida, we saw a need that we had a bunch of tools and equipment that sat around, and we were just looking for somewhere to rent them out. We've used Turo to rent our cars, we've used Airbnb and VRBO and all these other things that are coming up to rent things, so why not be able to rent our construction equipment? Like I said, it came from a space of us both being general contractors, thinking that this was going to be contractor to contractor use, but as we started to build it out, telling our friends and family about it, and people that aren't general contractors, they still have things. You know, your dad's got ladders and saws and stuff in his garage. Your neighbor, he's got leaf blowers and other things that he uses all the time. So we really kind of opened it up to, could be anybody. We started in 2019 with a website. We were manually doing transactions, we were manually uploading things, and really just being the middleman. As we went through that for about 6 months and we saw that it was taking off and it was a thing that we could continue, we decided to invest in building an app. We went through kind of the back half of 2019 getting the app built. We kind of beta tested it through early 2020, which was a great time to do it in the construction industry. But as we got to November of 2020, that's when we officially launched it. I left my other career and started doing this full time. We launched it up in Brighton and then down in St. Augustine, Florida, and those two markets really took off for us. So the thing we're trying to solve is contractors have assets that sit idle. Some people about 80% of the time. Even if you are a very niche contractor, if you dig foundations, you have trailers and hammer drills and other things that you're not using. So those are sitting back in your shop while your crew is outside. You've got storage fees for idle equipment, or you've got high monthly payments. So I myself, I've got a man lift and a dump trailer. My dump trailer alone is $300 a month. So I rent that out 2 to 3 times a month just for one day, and that offsets my payment for it. So it really helps newer contractors kind of build up their inventory of what they've got. So what we provide is a simple to use app-based platform. And that was one of the things when we had the website. Random people couldn't just upload their equipment, it all had to go through us. So to make that scalable, we wanted to build it out as an app. We do secured payment collections and distribution. So a lot of what I hear from people is, oh, I can just post my stuff on Facebook Marketplace. I do that all the time, or that's where I rent other things from. The problem with that is you don't have a secured payment. There's no insurance. There's no nothing on that. So you're just relying on word of mouth trust that this person's going to show up in the parking lot. You're going to meet them at. They're going to pay you to take your trailer, and they're going to bring it back. No problem. So we have a whole system built into our app where you're taking before and after pictures. You're calculating if there's fuel being used, hours on the machines. We collect payment from the renter up front. We hold that to make sure that it's a good rental transaction, and then at the end of it, we release it to the owner of the equipment. And we, like I mentioned, we're giving the owners of equipment something to do with their equipment and make some extra money. What we offer to renters is it's usually 20 to 50% cheaper to rent through us than it would be to go to one of the national rental chains, whether that's Home Depot, Sunbelt, or even some of the local shops, Jets, Ford, anything like that. Right now, we're working only on our P2P model, and like I said, that benefits private owners and renters. As we're trying to grow that, we are hitting limitations with inventory. We get a lot of renters asking us, do you have this type of machine? Do you have this over here? And just as we're trying to grow it, it's just, we're realizing that we don't have all the inventory that people need. So that's why we want to build in our SaaS model of that, where we can actually take this to rental shops and be their source of building up, instead of having them spend time and money on a website where they're hosting their own things. They could use our platform. We would just tweak some of the pricing and how that works. but ideally thinking of how like Golf Now works. A few years ago, you used to call a golf course, make a tee time, and somebody on the other end of the phone was manually writing a book. And then Golf Now came out, and everybody now is starting to use this app where you go on a golf course's website, you book a tee time, you show up, and it's all done. We would like to do that for rental shops. You can skip this one and go to 9. This is how it looks. So this is our MVP model of our app. This was built by Tim Pash, they're the same company that had built DraftKings. So that was one of the big challenges we had, just being 2 general contractors with no tech experience. We had to hire everything out. So they built the MVP of our app. We spent a lot of time on that first screen there. That is how people upload their equipment. We wanted to make it really easy for a contractor who, we say that we're all thumbs. You can see I got paint on my hands. I'm bootstrapping this thing every day. But you know, I can get on there. I can, it'll populate a Google image of a machine that I type in, so I can use that. I set the pricing, and it tells me what my take home is, what the renter is going to see as their price. As a renter searches through the inventory, they can use the booking calendar to choose the dates that they want, the time frame. They can select if they want it delivered, picked up, all that gets loaded into the app. Owners and renters are connected once the rental is accepted. They can talk through the fine-tunings of things. And at the end, you upload pictures to make sure there's any damage claims or anything like that. So from that point, it's been a really good system. Our biggest struggle is just getting out there. And that's just a close-up of what that screen looks like when you're uploading equipment, and how our price breaks down. If you're putting a table saw on the app for $35 a day, what the renter is going to see is that it's $40.25. That's with our 15% rental protection. So we're already adding in an insurance policy onto the piece of equipment. But the reason we did that was, as you look through the inventory, the renter sees $40.25. There's no additional fees that get added on. If you go to the Sunbelt website or some of the other websites out there for rental equipment, by the time you get all the way through the steps and checking boxes and delivery and insurance and all this stuff, what you're left with is sometimes hundreds of dollars more than what you thought it was going to cost. So we like to be just upfront clear about it. We show the owners take home, so that helps them set their pricing. If I need to make $100 a day to rent on my trailer, I can adjust that and see what it's going to look like. And then ultimately, that just shows our pricing model, what we make in revenue on a rental. The overall rental, construction rental, the market in the US, it's a $55 billion a year market. Now that's counting everything from a screwdriver up to the tower crane you see downtown. So it's a very big market. We're not even interested in most of that stuff. Really, once it's over a trailer or a skid steer, that's left for the big dogs. But we're just trying to grab a small percentage of that pie. We think we can get to $5 billion over the course of the next few years. We're on time. You can skip this one. And this is, yeah, that was good. This is how things are looking. So we launched in 2019 on the website, built out the app. We launched it in 2 states. And back in March, we actually launched in Texas as well. Our first ad campaign we started in April, and then we joined the LaunchPeer incubator back in June, which has been helping us try to put stuff together as we try to go into a seed round to raise investment. Once we get that seed round, we plan to put it into a marketing strategy and work on about a 1-to-1 run after that. Next. Lastly, this is our team. There's only 3 of us. Myself, the co-founder and CEO, Steve, and then we've got a VP of sales, Brian. So one of the good things about us being an app is that none of us live in the same state. I'm in Michigan, obviously. Steve is in Florida, and Brian is, I think, in Georgia, north part of Georgia. So it's been interesting for me, coming from a residential construction background, literal boots on the ground, to being in the app space. I'll end the presentation there and open it for questions.
I don't think it's the first app ever that deals with the same problem, right? So could you tell us something about it and what your competition is like?
Yeah, so the question was, if this is the first app to do this? Is that
I mean, I heard of this idea years ago already.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to the startup, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there's, this idea isn't new, so what are our challenges, who's our competition? Right now, there are two other players that we see that are out there. One is out of California, it's called Tool Tribe, and that seems to be, there's not a lot of growth there. It seems like he's staying close to California, and he's almost switched that to selling equipment, which I don't know if that has something to do with the market there or for other reasons. The other one is out of Nashville. They're really high Instagram heavy. I haven't really taken that seriously, but same thing. That one just seems to have tried to scale too large. Like they show things nationwide, but as you click on their map, it's just kind of sparing all over the place. I think just one of the biggest challenges is the inventory. Being able to build that SaaS model out where we can get around shops online, and that way people who use the app, they're looking for something specific. So right now, if you go on in this area, there's about 30 things. So if what you're looking for isn't there, you close my app and then you might not ever open it again. Whereas if there's a larger inventory, it would help you stay relevant. Thanks. Go ahead.
Does anyone here remember Alan Mond or Julian Veneer of 1,000 Tools? A long time ago. He was doing something very similar, but stopped doing that. One of the things that he ended up going into was city to city, county to county construction rentals and sharing. I'm just curious if that's, are you trying to stick mainly to companies, or are you trying to work with cities, governments?
Not really going into the cities and governments with that. Really just keeping it to general contractors, small contractors, builders, people that usually own and operate, like a landscaping company, remodeling.
It sounds like with the SaaS product that you're basically going to be offering more demand to these rental shops. And do they need it?
Depends on the season. Really, you know, there's some that might not need it through the middle of summer, but maybe come fall or winter they slow down quite a bit, especially in the winter around here. A lot of construction companies kind of slow down, so some of their bigger equipment might kind of sit idle. But looking at more of like the smaller onesie-twosie rental shops that maybe they don't have a very well-established website, or maybe they're just, you know, the guy that works at the desk is the same one that power washes them and refuels them, and they might be spread a little too thin. But being that it's free to download the app and free to upload equipment, our hope with them is that it's really only a gain for them.
You know, in my exposure to the construction industry, just as a customer, it seems like scheduling and stuff is like super dynamic. It's like, oh, we'll be there tomorrow, no, we'll be there next week. What does that mean in terms of like, you know, how far are you like, able to schedule this stuff in an effective way? It's like, I can do it tomorrow, or I can do it 2 weeks from now.
You can rent it tomorrow. Yeah, the only limitation you have is that you can't rent it same day.
So what time frame is like actually practical for people though?
It's going to depend on the equipment as well, because some things you have to schedule a larger truck or something to move it. So I've had that happen before, you know, where they've had to schedule a semi-truck to come move their piece of equipment to somewhere else. And that's currently, it's been a trouble spot before, but it's not a reoccurring thing. But we are going to build that into the next series of updates, where we'll allow that owner of the equipment to put that time block in there, where you can't rent it from me, you know, within 3 days of this booking, because they need the time to set up or whatever.
Do you find the like supply side harder to grow, or the demand side?
supply of them, obviously.
So the question was, do I find the supply side or the demand side harder to grow? It's kind of the chicken and the egg, and it also, it seems to come and go. Sometimes we get kind of flooded with requests, people looking for things. And then the other side, that'll be kind of quiet, but I'll have more people uploading the app and uploading items. It's so far it's kind of been a wait. Back.
Are there any geographical areas that are constrained, and are you looking to expand to other areas, or are you just targeting a specific area?
When we very first launched the app, we went for Brighton because that's where I live and I could manually kind of talk about it. And then down in St. Augustine where my co-founder lives because he could manually talk about it. We eventually just opened up the whole state of Michigan, the whole state of Florida, and then we randomly opened up Texas. We don't know anybody there, but the idea was as we look at cities that have the most construction happening, Texas had 4 of the top 7 cities for new construction. So we shot for it, and we've seen a lot of traction come out of that. But that was kind of one of our ideas for the app was in rural places, you might be driving an hour to get to the rental shop, Home Depot, whatever that is. And meanwhile, you're passing farms and houses and all these people that have equipment that's just sitting out in the garage that they potentially could list and rent out.
We'll take one more question and then we'll save the rest for after.
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
How many active users do you have?
2,106 as of my drive-in on the checks. We've got 590 pieces of equipment uploaded. And I think right now there's 3 rentals scheduled for tomorrow that are between here and Brighton. All right, well, thank you for your time. And
Thanks, Mark. All right, our third and final presenter is Alex Russomanno. He's with NewHaptics. NewHaptics is a growing startup whose mission is to improve the lives of people that are blind by enabling digital access to information through the sense of touch. Please welcome Alex. All right.
So, you might be wondering why you're looking at a blank slide here, and it's not because I didn't put together a presentation. It's because this is an example of what blind people have to deal with every day, and that is not having access to digital information, and particularly information that's spatial in nature, like this PowerPoint, but also things like graphs, spreadsheets, maps, and many of the things that maybe a lot of us take for granted, like interacting with phones by clicking apps or interacting with a desktop interface by using a mouse and cursor. There are over 1.5 million people who are blind in the US and 50 million around the world whose knowledge, independence, and really their opportunities in education and employment are limited by the fact that they don't have access to digital information. And the thing is, hard copy forms of content that provide meaningful access to content exist. So we all probably are familiar with Braille. You see it on placards and all around buildings. So that's a means of providing access to text to blind people. And there are large area formats of Braille that give access to textbooks and full books and have contextual access to content, but there's also things called tactile diagrams. And these are things that people might not be familiar with that provide access to graphical information, like something you might find in a math textbook or a map of somewhere you're trying to go. And all of these things are available in hard copy form, but as of right now, they're not really available in a digital format and aren't accessible in that way to blind people. And of course, there isn't access because of that to digital forms of media. So things like websites and again, these PowerPoint presentations that you see or Excel spreadsheets. So this is the technology devices on the market. This is a need that is partially being filled. But the problem with these solutions at the moment is that they're fairly limited in what they can convey. What you're looking at here is what's called a refreshable Braille display. And this is a peripheral device you plug into a computer or maybe Bluetooth it to your phone. And what it does is it renders just a couple words of Braille on the surface. So it actually moves dots up and down to render this Braille. Unfortunately, though, these devices are fairly limited in their size due to won't get into too much depth, but the underlying technology that supports the moving of these dots really can't be scaled up to something that's large enough to do the things that I was talking about before. And really what this means is that in modern society where so many things are becoming more and more digital, blind people are missing out. So at NewHaptics, we're trying to change that. Our goal is to unlock this digital world for the blind by building a first of its kind tactile tablet display. And what is that? Well, it's really just a computer that instead of a visual screen, it has a screen that has pixels that you can feel. And so we can build a large grid of these pixels on a surface, and then we move them up and down in such a way as to present not just multiple lines of Braille, but also tactile graphics that Denise was describing earlier. And then of course, it opens up the possibility of providing blind people with access to content that they've never had before. So these things like websites and graphical user interfaces that are on touchscreens and things that are everywhere now. So touchscreens are on like washing machines and fridges, and I mean, they're really everywhere. And so this might open the possibility for blind people to have greater access to those things. So what enables this is a very unique patented microchip technology, which is really just a fancy way of saying that we use air pressure to move up and down little bubbles on a surface, and we do it in such a way that's very packageable and manageable from a scalability standpoint. To date, we've done most of our development through government grants and built a small-scale prototype that fits in about the size of the palm of your hand. And we just raised $2.7 million in funding, again from government grants, to take that small-scale prototype and scale it up into something that's full-size and get it out into the hands of blind people around the world. So my name is Russomanno. I am leading the charge at NewHaptics. We're based here in Ann Arbor, corner of Packard and Carpenter Road. And I have two co-founders who sort of round out our team. So Sheila here on the left is our secret weapon. She is one of a very few set of blind researchers that is not only using assistive technology on a day-to-day basis, but also researching and trying to understand how those pieces of assistive technology are used and how they can be better to improve the lives of people who are blind. And then Brent here on the right brings some technical chops to the team. So he has a long history of working in the haptics space, haptics being sense of touch research, and has been a part of bringing some haptic technologies to market. So we certainly have a lot going on, and my primary ask today is that we're hiring, and so we're looking for to fill roles in the technical realm as well as some part-time operations to start, but hopefully someone that might be able to move into a full-time position later. I'm happy to get into more details about what those roles mean. I mean, those are very broad, but just wanted to leave it there for now. And if you have questions about that, feel free to ask. And thank you. That's all I have. So happy to answer questions. In the back.
So it's really exciting to think like, all right, we take a tablet, we take the entire graphical user interface that all of us have in our pockets, and we put it onto a tablet and we like display it through Braille. Where do you start with that? Is the vision to go direct to that and say, no, this is literally like it's the web, just the Braille version, or are you starting somewhere smaller and like easier to develop?
Definitely smaller, more incremental. So you might be familiar with human interface device standards. When you plug in a mouse to a computer, boom, it works, right? So those standards are set in the Braille space such that refreshable Braille displays, those things I was showing you earlier, they have a standard so that they can just, no matter what the make or model is, when you plug it into a computer, there's integrated software. So Apple and Microsoft, they have their own what's called screen reader software. This is software that they've, as a company, developed to make their systems accessible to Braille displays. The problem has been the Braille displays have lagged behind, and they're really limited in what they can convey. Right? They only can convey a couple words of text. So our display will initially be much larger than that. It could convey multiple lines, and when it plugs in and is compatible with HID, that'll be the start. So being able to access multiple lines of text, that opens up the possibility of doing mathematical equations, which are often multi-line code, which is another big application for blind people. So there's a lot of things just right off the bat that we'll be able to do. Down the road, there's a lot of development that will be required to make a tactile graphical user interface. And we are very much interested in attacking that, and will be part of our development.
I know a lot of stuff's still out here, where you're going out fast, but what's your kind of plan in terms of your first commercially available product and that might actually happen?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we just got funded through some government grants. Within those, our goal is to try to get something out into, not this summer, but the following summer, into schools. So this would be a full-scale version of the device that has the HID-based software and can do a couple little like bells and whistles things, and to try to get it tested in the hands of people that will use it. So as I mentioned, yeah, we have just a small-scale version that's about this big. We're trying to get to about 6 to 8 times the size of that by now.
In this new device, what's the target resolution? What will be the actual person sensing?
Yeah, when you say resolution, do you mean the size of it or the?
No, I mean, what do they get? If
Sure.
the page is 1,000 characters, right, then it's like A4 or letter, what they will get?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a very, not to get too deep, but what you're getting at is kind of how blind people access content and what's available in such a small space. And of course, it's not as dense as what a sighted person can access through their vision. So simply speaking, a blind person and what they can access with their sense of touch ends up being about 5 to 10 times the size of what you might access in a visual format. And so Braille, by its nature, is of a very specific size. So it has to be 2.5 millimeters pin to pin. And so that means that you just simply can't pack in that much Braille into a page that size. But anything is much better than a single line. And so already, once you go from a single to multiple, new forms of content that you would not otherwise be able to access become available, like multi-line math equations, like musical notation. And then again, when you start to think about graphics, bar charts, line charts, things that are useful in STEM and science, technology, and math field. So.
The addressable market seems kind of small to me. You're
For
talking
sure,
about
yeah.
1.5 million people. It seems like it takes a lot of R&D.
Yeah,
to get this to go. So what is the ongoing business model? How would you, let's say this thing worked great, all 1.5 million people wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you make that work?
Sure. So to be blunt, you're absolutely right. It's a small market, very niche. Obviously, it's a low incidence disability, but there is a market for refreshable Braille devices already out there. It's a heavily government backed. So this is with Students with the Disabilities Act, as well as a lot of state-run rehabilitation or trying to get people into jobs agencies will provide funding for people to purchase these devices. So what we're talking about here is, in the thousands of devices per year, but each of these devices is in the thousands of dollars. And so it's probably devices alone in the US about a $50 million market, but our goal is to then take that and expand into a much broader market, which is tactile content in general. So not only do blind people need these devices in the classroom or at home to access digital information, but they also need the kind of conversion of text or image content into that form and getting it onto their device. And so what we become at that point is a platform device that what's called transcribers or people that convert these pieces of information would be able to do it specifically for our device, and so that the blind students or adults or whoever's using it can access those very unique capabilities of those people through our device. But yes, so we're obviously well aware of the limitations in terms of market size, but are kind of happy to know that that market exists and is supported by the government.
What's your competitive landscape like?
Yeah, great question. There very much is. So there are a number of other companies that are trying to do the same thing. This is, we weren't the first to come up with this, but it's often been called the holy grail of the space. And so the idea has always been to try to create something like this. The challenge has always been how to do it. And again, given the small market, the cost of R&D and getting there. So I'll say that there are probably two main companies that are building tech, very different in terms of the underlying tech and trying to get there. And so it's all about, is the tech scalable, and given the market size, is it really possible to build something at that size at a certain price point? And so our kind of maybe secret sauce here is that our underlying technologies based in microfluidics, it's a already fairly developed space in terms of the manufacturing processes due to a major movement in lab on a chip. So these are things that end up in lab benches in medical testing and things. And essentially, there are companies that fabricate components for this market that we're leveraging to build our device. And so we're not going to necessarily need to scale up our manufacturing ourselves. We can rely on these companies that already have scaled up manufacturing for these other purposes to achieve our end. And so that's taken.
Okay, let's do one last question for Alex.
Sure.
What's your revenue model?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned a little bit. Yeah, no worries. I kind of mentioned just a piece of it earlier, and of course we have to talk in more depth later, but device sales right off the bat. And so getting the devices into classrooms at the $5,000 to $10,000 mark per device is first and foremost what we're trying to do. And thereafter, it's building out the software and trying to get to a point where we're not only being the device sales people, but we're also being the middleman for pairing up the companies that do transcription or the conversion of content with our device and selling content through our store, if you will. And games. Gotta have games.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Let's give one last round of applause for our three amazing presenters. They all did amazing. They're all going to be here afterwards if you want to connect with them, go deeper with some of your questions, have some great conversations. That's what this is all about. It's now time for our community announcement. So if anybody else has anything that you want to share, now is your time to stand up and share away. I'll start by announcing that the next A2NewTech October meetup will be in collaboration with Ann Arbor Spark to celebrate the end of their Entrepreneur Bootcamp. The event will be on October 11th from 5 to 7, and the event will be both virtual and live at NetScout. So with that being said, who has something that they'd like to share this evening? Come on up.
Thank you. I'm Paul Etchie. I'm head of a group here in town that's been around since 1985, dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and startups get going, mostly in the local area. It's called the New Enterprise Forum. Our main thing is we have groups of very experienced business people who volunteer their time, and they use that time to provide coaching to entrepreneurs who are looking for their very early stage angel or seed round funding. And we have a bunch of different processes for how we do that, which I'm glad to explain to you sometime. But the most visible thing we do is every month we have a public meeting. We're very fortunate. We're not doing it on Zoom anymore. We're back meeting at Spark headquarters in downtown Ann Arbor. It's usually the third Thursday of every month. The next one will be October 20th at Spark at 5 o'clock. So we encourage anybody with interest in startups, just come there and meet other people in addition to the program. It's a great networking opportunity. But more specifically, if you are an entrepreneur and you might be interested in pitching at our pitch contest we're having Thursday, October 20th, just go to our website, newenterpriseforum.org, and look for the Pitch Pit page and fill out an application this week, because we'll be selecting the people for that program within early next week. So check out that website, and great opportunity to meet other people interested in startups.
Anybody else? All right. All right.
We could go let's do it. I'm Josh from Makerworks. We're having an open house Sunday, October 23rd. So if you want to see what 14,000 square feet of...
Sorry, do you want to take a couple steps into that?
There we go.
Just
the box
sorry,
right there.
Yeah, sorry.
So Makerworks, it's a makerspace, 14,000 square feet. We're having an open house on Sunday, October 23rd. If you want to see what a massive facility of CNC routers and drill presses and 3D printers and laser cutters are like, awesome. more importantly, we're gonna have a bunch of neat people who've been working there for the past 5 years, and you'll have a chance to see what neat things they've made, what businesses they've started. And it's everyone from people just rocking out awesome custom handbags on up to Nimbus has done some very, very small prototyping research work. They're not building their electrical vehicle in our facility. That would be awesome. But there's a lot of cool stuff there. Sunday, October 23rd. What do you got?
All right. So I'm Zach West. I'm the field manager at the Center for Engagement at EMU, and I just want to announce 2 of our upcoming events. First, we've got a mobile robot marketing guide that's going to be on October 13th, part of A2NewTech 360. So we're going to be featuring some CEOs, past interns from robotics companies, intermodal pedestrian, totally free of charge. So anyone who's interested in that space, startups, feel free to attend. We also have our digital marketing workshop, first in person once since before the pandemic too, so that's exciting. That's going to be in November. That's much bigger event, like 6 hours long. We've got Google, Pinterest, Career Now Brands, and lots of other companies. Also going to be doing breakfast, lunch, and it's just a great networking event and we have a promo going, $20 until October 31st. After that it goes up to $25. If you want to learn more about these, come talk to me. I'll be here for a while. I've got flyers.
Anybody else have anything that they want to share? Now's your big chance. Okay. Everybody have a good time tonight?
Yeah.
Awesome. Everybody motivated, inspired, ready to go? Okay, so now is our chance to network, to ask questions of each other, help each other, support each other. Hang around as long as you want. We're going to open up the doors. Feel free to explore the bar. There's a restaurant out there as well. Have fun, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it.